elsewhere, you'll see that we're live.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we'll give people a minute or two to join. I'll just open up my phone as well to see if you're going live. And I guess once we have a few folks, then
looks like we're
not sure. We should be live already. Just checking on that.
Something shows up.
Yeah.
YouTube.
Awesome.
So.
If you're connected to me, then you will see Terry's live or something. Oh yes, we are. We already have 32 people. So wonderful. Okay, awesome. So and as people join in, once again, welcome. Thank you once again for being in this call, and all the viewers worldwide who are listening to our chat. I have a couple of entrepreneurs. I reached out to all of you, and we have this great sort of pool of entrepreneurs out here with me, and we want to kind of address two important things in this economy. There's a lot going on, and I'm not going to sort of mention the C words, but we were all kind of under the blanket of current complicated scenarios for businesses. So the questions that we want to address in these is what are the biggest challenges that entrepreneurs face around the world. Looking at what's happening in the Netherlands, me and Kaz can kind of look at those sort of aspects. What's happening in UK, and Jonathan is going to look at it. And Mario and Guiwan, they're in Korea, so we have kind of a decent coverage around APAC and Europe region, which is perfect, which is great. But before we jump into the challenges and the opportunities that we are facing, I want to start with the introductions, and starting with myself. So I guess for those who are joining for the first time and seeing my feed and are not aware of what we are trying to do. So I'm CEO and founder of deeplearning.ai, which is an incubation platform where we sort of really kind of incubate ideas. We do a lot of research, and eventually we also do philanthropy, which what that means is we're really helping out, and I give lectures as well at universities in the Netherlands and also in US. I'm also CEO and co-founder of Real AI, which is the enterprise sort of vehicle. And if you go on realai.eu, you see we are launching projects in healthcare. Well, we just recently, yesterday, we created a new portfolio project. We're calling it Document AI to kind of improve documentation, extracting information out of documentation. So, and there's a lot of interesting things we're doing. So we just have to look up into my profile or the companies that I'm associated with to understand more what we do. Obviously, the big theme here is AI. So having said that, that's machine learning and deep learning. And so we are in healthcare, and there's a lot of interesting things happening in healthcare as well. So that's a little bit of introduction about me. I'll sort of pass the baton to Jonathan. I looked at your profiles. Jonathan has a PhD in neuroscience, which is a fascinating topic for ourselves as well. We have a bunch of PhD in neurosciences, and we've written a paper as well on neuroscience. So Jonathan, then I'll go to Mario, and I'll go to Guiwan, and end with my Dutch neighbor friend, Kaz. So Jonathan, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure, I'd be very happy to, Terry, and thanks for having me. So yeah, my background is as a clinician originally. I actually started out as a philosophy student and became interested in the sort of interface between computers and brains, and then decided to study medicine and did my medical studies, worked as a doctor for several years, and then went off to do things like a master's in machine learning and then my PhD, and coming back. And last time I was sort of working as a doctor, I was training as a neurologist. But I came to the realization that really what fascinated me was the whole field of neurological medicine, not so much being a doctor in neurological medicine, if you see what I mean. So the way I sometimes put it is that I wanted to work on neurology, not in neurology. So I gave up training as a neurologist, lest I become one, and started machine medicine, fairly ineptly to start with, but gradually we sort of started to sort of integrate the sort of commercial realities into the sort of neuroscientific vision, as it were. And really what we're trying to do at Machine Medicine is build a platform technology for the development and the deployment of precision neurotherapeutics. And that's become a particularly acute issue over the past few decades, because whereas previously we were quite limited in the number of drugs that we had for conditions like depression and, say, Parkinson's disease, where we work. In the last few decades, there's been a very rapid evolution and development of an area of called functional intervention, or functional neurosurgery, or neurotechnology, various sort of monikers that people use. But the basic notion is that rather than just sort of doing things like damage limitation, which was essentially what neurosurgical medicine and neurological medicine was, you have tumors, try and sort of cut it out and don't cut too much of the brain out. We're actually starting to intervene and neuromodulate circuits so as to achieve functional objectives like improving mood or improving motor dysfunction. And that's actually where we focus, our first vertical is in Parkinson's disease. So at the moment, we're optimizing the assessment, measurement, and characterization of motor dysfunction in people with Parkinson's disease, and in particular, people with Parkinson's disease who are being considered for deep brain stimulation, a form of neuromodulation. So we're sort of classic sort of deep tech startup, venture-backed. Took us 2 years to generate our first revenue, which I'm glad to say we are now, however. And very, very glad to sort of chat about the sort of various implications of COVID and other context.
Fascinating, Jonathan. So there's a lot of things which I was able to filter out for people who are not familiar with this field of neuroscience. Just kind of very simplifying it. You've seen there are a bunch of research also on our research page on neuromodulation. And I don't want to go in detail into ACH and all those other neuromodulators, but I think what Jonathan is trying to do and achieve is to actually sort of, you have neurotransmitters and you have neuromodulators. So like a two-faced monster, kind of trying to explain in a very sort of black and white, plain, simple layman's terms. And how can you sort of improve the mood behavior, and looking at the segment of Alzheimer's, which is where Jonathan's machine medicine is tackling. Wonderful.
Parkinson's disease, but another neurodegenerative.
Parkinson's. Thank you. Thanks. I stand corrected. Awesome. So we have Mario Garcia Lee, and please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi. So my name is Mario Garcia Lee. I'm based here in Seoul, South Korea. In my past life, I was doing research in astrophysics. And at that time, I realized we had such amazing ideas and computing power. And I, was somewhat, I don't want to use the word disappointed, but I felt there was more to it than just publishing academic papers. So instead of continuing on with my PhD, I went to business school. After business school, we tried our first startup. We were, developing some interesting technology to track, the heat signature of people using IR cameras, and then try to control air conditioning. That startup failed, and it failed for two reasons. The first one was that we kind of lost our way. We didn't, we thought the technology was cool, but we didn't find exactly what was the reason we wanted to do it. And then we just ended up going in a lot of different directions, and we ran out of time, which means that we ran out of money. And the second reason it failed is because we didn't know how to market it. So the current company that I have came as an idea out of that failure, which is, well, now that I ran out of my own idea, I think what I should learn how to do well is these two things. How do you ground yourself and find a good reason to do what you want to do? And how do you deploy your marketing campaigns? So at Lighting Up Ventures, we work with accelerators. We're soon to publish our own course where we basically teach scientists and engineers, aside from your product that you're trying to develop, how do you get these other two pillars of your company done? We have a great partnership with Hanyang University in South Korea. We're partners with their Technology Commercialization Center. And that's actually where I first met Gui-Hwan Moon during one of the events. So on this call, Terry, you get 2 for the price of 1, because almost all of the work that I've been doing among AI, there are other projects at Hanyang that we're going to be spinning out soon. But most of my time has been spent working with Gui-Hwan, since he's been the one that's closest to the market. So in the past, it's been about a year now that we've been working together and really trying to define how do we enter the market with this product. Terry, one more thing I want to point out is that the operational model was in large part inspired by Kappa.ai. We're like, what are they doing? All right, that's an interesting way of doing things. Why don't we follow along and see how they're building out their entire business and do something similar to that? And so I guess that's my brief introduction.
Thank you.
And it's great that now Gui-Hwan gets to talk a little bit about what he's doing, what he's deploying.
Awesome. Thank you, Mario. My apologies. Gui-Hwan.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Tell us a bit about yourself.
Okay, thanks.
And the lab that you're running, Orbis Lab, right?
Yeah. Just call me Moon, and we are providing a platform called DeepLog. DeepLog is a kind of a tool, AI tool platform for someone who don't know much about AI, but however, someone who want to use AI. So it's basically an AI tool with drag and drop interface, and we specifically want to use our platform for high resolution imagery analysis. For example, satellite imagery to microscopy, and we offer a kind of a computer vision solutions as a kind of a AI builder, so that many people can use our service to create their own AI model. So that's a kind of a brief introduction about our service. And I was just an engineer and kind of a writer in kind of edtech company. And previously, I worked for enterprises, and I'm doing research and conducting a kind of a AI project. But however, I figured out that using AI is quite simple compared to implementing or designing a kind of a complicated AI model. I mean, deep neural network or some kind of stuff. But so I decided to make people understand that implementing AI is quite hard, but using AI is not that difficult, especially in supervised learning areas. So I decided to build and prove my thought. And so we are contributing and kind of serving our platform. Yeah, that's my
wonderful. So thank you. That's an amazing vision, and I think it's great to kind of educate people in applying AI, not just giving all kinds of I would say simplistic MOOCs platforms, which is great if you're running some spin on a Boston housing price or doing some kind of a prediction, but really applying AI, running those machine learning pipelines inside your production. And I guess then we look at CAS. CAS, is it CAS or CAS?
Just say CAS, that's fine.
CAS.
In Dutch, we would say CAS from Casper, but that's short.
Yeah, tulip. So CAS is running an awesome young machine learning startup. I do know Hussein, who connected you to me. In fact, me and Hussein were actually, it kind of loops back into really interesting things. He was working on another a neuroscience startup in Denmark, and he had connected to me because we are still incubating not really a neural link, but there is a startup project in neuroscience for Alzheimer's. Actually, that was my idea, Jonathan. So I kind of was getting a little bit ahead of myself. So there's this idea, and it was about auditory signals and using the right auditory signals. And I think he's explained to you all about it. So in a way, the world is kind of same. So please tell us a little bit about yourself, Cas. And Van Boven, or Van Boven, as we would say in English.
Van Boven, that sounds cool, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you also for the opportunity of having me here. So my name is Cas Vermeer. I'm one of the 3 founders of Van Boven, which is a Dutch term for from above, and that has something to do with the business that we're in. Because we're specialized in the agricultural domain, where we try to use modern data gathering technologies and AI in order to sort of bring this very, well, some people would say old school business, old school domain into the, to show it all the possibilities of modern technology. So what we're doing specifically is that we use drones and artificial or AI-enhanced computer vision technologies to inspect images of vegetable growers in order to provide them with accurate harvest forecasts of these fresh products. As you might imagine, fresh produce like lettuce or broccoli, for instance, once it's harvested, it needs to be transported to a retail location quite quickly and sold there quickly. So that's a very challenging supply chain. And this whole supply chain is currently running on growers' estimates of how much production they actually have. And we did quite extensive market validation. And as it turns out, currently growers' estimates are off by about 20%. So sometimes they have 20% more production than expected, sometimes 20% less. And this is a big challenge for the entire supply chain. So it's our goal to use drone technology to gather data and then a smart analysis tool based on AI to predict harvest and make this estimation much more accurate. And we're currently at the demonstration phase with this technology. We're live in the Netherlands at let's say, a sort of handful of growers and also other supply chain partners, starting mostly focused on broccoli. So I also know everything about broccoli. I've learned that over the past year. So if anyone needs to know about it, just let me know. And I think it's a really awesome time to be working on this type of technology. And for us, it's great to be able to bring this very sort of old school technology and see a grower work with this really fancy sort of cutting edge technology and bring those two worlds together. I think that's what really drives us and what's most inspiring. And yeah, I'm looking forward to talking with you all.
Wonderful, Kaz. I think very clearly explained also the benefits of what you want to achieve, looked at the inefficiencies. I think it's beautifully presented. It was almost like you're pitching, which is an amazing pitch. Thank you. So, I mean, let's get all this excitement a little bit out of the way and let's go outside. And as Mike Tyson once said, is all that preparation, goes out of the window when you get punched in the face, and there you are lying on the ground, looking like a fool and a clown. So let me put myself on the spot. We have this huge community. Yes, Mario, you said, like huge, we have like close to about 150,000 people. There's close to 80,000 people who follow me. And then we have Deep Kappa platform that is growing also pretty rapidly. But the thing is, when I look back and when my chief operating officer, she looks at me, the first and the most important question is, do you have customers? How quickly and how optimal your business model is? What is your goal? Are you looking at recurrent revenues? Everything, all those terms that we are supposed to be dealing with, looking at your ARR, looking at your target total addressable market. And then you look at total serviceable market and serviceable operating market. I mean, as you can go as hardcore as you can. We ask those questions as well. And I think what I'm struggling with in my business today is, despite the excitement that we have, is first of all, obviously, I don't want to blame COVID-19, but I can tell you that a lot of our customers are really pushing their sort of, they're extending their sort of, the purchases. It's becoming kind of difficult for us to kind of find a way to move forward. Fortunately, in our business, we have pulled in close to a little bit over €500,000 euros worth of grants money from European Commission. So that helps us do all these innovative projects to keep us alive. But I'm really concerned, and this is like my genuine concern. I'm looking at like, okay, I mean, what's going to happen in the next couple of months to a year and a half? Sure enough, there's a lot of capital available. A lot of capital is shifting from companies that are going to be sort of abandoning these fossil fuel kind of technologies. And in our own Dutch company, Shell is already doing that in the Netherlands. So there's a lot of capital available. But eventually, I think myself, before I take money from investors, and we are now on doing a roadshows, so we've started talking to investors to raise a large amount of capital because we believe that we've already moved beyond post-seed, is how is it going to help me if I'm not able to build a structured sort of order book, as you say, as a sales manager, to have a pipeline so I can have just about enough revenues coming in to be able to justify that in second year or third year, I will also be a little bit profitable to start, giving the money back to my investors. I am being really open because there's a lot of initiatives starting in the Netherlands. Just to give you a perspective, so I think Kaz is aware of it. There's a Kickstart NL where the Dutch royal family is also pushing those ideas. Lots of guys are writing big letters to each other. But I'm thinking, I think we are missing something here. We need to be selling products to each other. So my services can be sold to someone else. I wish I can work with you, any one of you today, so we can start actually sort of transacting and making the money move. Today, the money is just sitting in many big pockets and nothing is happening. Writing all these great letters in newspapers and writing to your prime ministers, and it's not going to help, because eventually we are the ones who know how to capitalize on the capital. So my challenges are, first, obviously, talent. There's a huge war on talent going on. Second is, we have a huge community. People have sort of worked with Professor Bengio. There's one of our researchers he's actually even award-winning researchers sitting with us. I'm really concerned. I want to hold on to that talent if I have them. Second, the only way I can hold on to those guys is that I have some reasonable amount of revenue coming in. So I sometimes can be and I think as a startup, as a founder, you have your moments of, oh my God, I mean, can I survive this? 8-9 years ago, when Elon Musk was thinking of $15 million each in Tesla and SpaceX, I wish I had that. But I think at that point of the scale of magnitude of problem that he was faced with, it was like do or die. So am I the only one here who is experiencing this or am I stupid or vulnerable to talk about these issues? Or how do you guys look at it? So just, asking Jonathan first.
Yeah, I mean, the whole sort of art of raising money from investors is one that's played with a lot of voodoo as well as some logic, I think. And I guess I would say I don't think that there's been really that much of a revolution in how investors and people that do have capital to deploy are thinking about things. So how they assess the sort of strategic position of the company, the sort of the unit economics and that kind of stuff. I guess the way somebody taught me how to pitch to investors, Bill Lau at SOSV, one of our early investors, and he put it quite nicely. I thought that what you have to do with an investor is turn fear into greed. So the investors go around with little pots of money, and they are terrified of giving it to someone who will burn through it and give them nothing back in return. And the only way you'll get through that fear is if you can elicit sufficient greed to overwhelm it. And I guess what I would say is that in this climate, the base level of fear has gone right up. So you need an even better story, I guess. But the fundamentals, the kinds of stories that you should be telling to people and the kind of evidence that you should be providing, I think has basically stayed the same. I would say I think that in sort of our sector, if I might call it that, of deep tech, I think we've been relatively well insulated because most of us are not relying upon revenue in order to sustain ourselves from month to month and meet payroll and that kind of stuff, which is a great blessing, I think, because what we're seeing here is I think when we look back in a year's time, you'll see there's basically been 6 to 8 months of pretty much dead time. And if you haven't got the capital to bridge that 6 to 8 months, you are in serious trouble. But if you do, then you may well be okay. I know in our own case, we depend upon our early revenues on clinical trials, and they have been halted, every single one. I don't think there's a single one that's still ongoing in terms of actually seeing patients and collecting patient data. Though 1 or 2 of them are still uploading and that kind of stuff, but from historical. But fortunately, those clinical trials haven't been cancelled; they've been delayed. So we're expecting an uptick after the sort of the shutters open again and people return to business. So fingers crossed, cautious optimism. That's the watchword of the entrepreneur, right?
Thank you, Jonathan. I think it's kind of sort of, yeah. I feel the pain. The delayed and sometimes how things get really prolonged is a challenge that definitely is something I guess we're facing worldwide. It's today it's almost like a economic sort of pandemic right now that has kind of put us in a position as to payroll, keeping people, how to make sure even the administration around taxation and all these other laws that haven't been flexible enough to actually move as quickly as pandemic has given us challenges of wow, okay, so I mean today me and my co-founders haven't paid ourselves any salary for the last 6 months. We haven't. I mean, it's the truth. Sure enough, I mean, if I go to Andreessen in my first startup 10 years ago, Mark Andreessen was also very friendly. We've had conversations there. Mark Benioff, and in great times, people send their best people, and they're speaking on podium. We were doing awesome stuff. And today, I'm thinking I still have great ideas, so how to take these forward. Mario, I'm really interested because you're coming from that field. I guess you've been in US, you've seen a lot of things happening. And I'm sure, as someone who's right now, not having people on payroll yourself, you can probably look at it from a distance and sort of give an objective view on the pain that me and Jonathan and Kaz and I guess Vivan are also facing. How do you look at it objectively? Because you can use that filter now.
Well, the first thing that I'm going to tell you is that I don't exactly have that filter. Because previously, 2 years ago, I was working independently without a payroll, and things started to pick up to the extent that we thought, you know what, there's actually a company that can be made out of this. And so we incorporated as an independent company, and we hired people, and, we felt it, and we actually had to downsize. And like the whole not paying yourself a salary. Now, keep in mind, I've got a wife and 2 kids, 5 years old, 7 years old. So this period was no, I don't have a filter. I felt it. I felt it just as much as anybody else on this call, even though we're not developing a core technology product. And I think that number one, survival is really important. You've got to cut down costs, and you've got to make sure that you can keep money coming in. There's no shame, absolutely no shame. And I think it's the smart strategy to retreat partially, temporarily, into government grants, because governments are putting out this money to kickstart. And I think governments are doing a great job keeping a lot of us alive through government grants, through emergency stimulus funds, because it keeps the economy moving. I get a salary, I go to the supermarket, I buy things, and then that continues to provide for everybody else. So I think that it's important to realize a lot of companies are going to fail in this period. There's just no way around it. And people have to be very aware of when it's going to be the right time to say, I can't pay anything else. And instead of putting me into a deeper hole, call it quits and figure something else out. But there is a lot of hope. At MIT, there's a professor, Scott Stern, and together with his graduate students, they did research looking at what happened before and after the dot-com boom and subsequent bust. And if you look at financing, because right now we're talking about bringing money in to be able to survive. If you look at financing rounds, the companies that were started, incorporated before, as the dot-com was rising, then obviously at that time, they take the cake. That cohort has the highest number of investment events. However, if you look at it a little bit differently and you look at what are the real outcomes meaning IPOs or M&As, where everybody got paid back and then made some, right? The high quality cohort does not happen during the boom. It happens after the bust. Think about Google. When did they really take off? It was after the bust, after all of the other search engines had failed, and the one that actually had something of value was able to take the cake. I think part of this reason is to what you talked about previously, Terry. One of the biggest issues is keeping your talent together. And when everybody has money from VCs, that is impossible, man. It's impossible. Yeah. But right now, I can promise you it's easy, really easy to keep people on payroll. In fact, you're in a situation where people are willing to accept a lower salary just to be able to stay on payroll. So I think that's what I would say, that right now what we are doing, and for those of us who can make it and who can survive, we will look at the 7 to 10 year period time after this, where we are going to have greater outcomes than the unicorn party we saw like 3 to 4 years ago. So that's the prediction that I have.
Thank you.
I didn't make the prediction. That's the prediction MIT made. I'm just extrapolating it to the current time.
Oh, absolutely. I think this is it's a great sort of narrative, but also correlation to. I think I was saying. I guess I said it here in my last talk with our friends. 20 years ago, we had a dot-com bust. We didn't have a financial crisis. Then we had a financial crisis, but we didn't have a healthcare crisis. And today we have a healthcare crisis that is unfortunately hitting. It's almost like, you get a flu. So you say, well, I think I'm okay. Then from a flu, you get some kind of, some viral infection that goes into, at your organ level. And then suddenly it's so economic. So there's an economic, so healthcare is not deconstruction. It is also kind of deconstruction is happening. But it's now the deconstruction is kind of moving into the risk, the guys who have their portfolios and asset management. Everybody's looking at their risk. In the Netherlands, the biggest funds that we have in the Netherlands is €1 trillion worth of pension capital. So everybody's watching the timelines. In the pension capital, if you look at all those big sort of insurers, they are looking at the billion. No one wants to touch that €1 trillion, my apologies, €1 trillion worth of capital. It is in hands of private equity and all these other people. In November is the time frame I was told, or I read it in the financial news, that November, December, then people start kind of shaking if nothing is happening. So then they start eating into that. And that is a deconstruction at a level which is unprecedented. And I'm super scared about it. It's unfortunate that I'm not 20-something. I wish I was 20-something so I could have been stupid and young and gung-ho and I wouldn't know about anything, so I would be fearless. I've become fearful because I just have too much information these days, which sometimes is qualifiable. So I think there's a lot of challenges happening. But Guilherme, if I ask you, what are the challenges you're facing and how do you look at it? I mean, you don't have to look at it at a macroeconomic scale. I guess, we try to help ourselves just on our little niches that we are working on. But how does it affect you today?
The pandemic. First, I want to introduce a brief landscape of South Korean industry, economic kind of a structure. Korea is still a kind of a manufacturing industry, a manufacturing country. So that means like large enterprises like Hyundai or Samsung are almost composites around the half of the Korean economy. That means that less diversity in economic, industry, and also, and as for AI startups and kind of software industry too. So there will be a kind of a lack of that, meaning, lack of flexibility of the economy makes a kind of a not kind of a diverse ecosystem in startup industry, startup ecosystem. So, for example, the only industry that can make money in South Korea is related with AI, is just related with industrial vision. That's why Cognex, a US enterprise, bought Suare in South Korea. Suare provided a kind of a semiconductor quality inspection software for Samsung Semiconductor. So that is how they could make money, and that is why they could be sold by kind of large enterprises. And so still, but the pandemic attacked kind of Hyundai Motors, but however, not Samsung. Samsung was not then affected by the pandemic. However, that means that cash flow will be affected by, in long term, will be affected by this pandemic, and because people usually does not buy big vehicle or cars these days, so they're kind of export kind of achievement is decreasing, and so they are cutting their kind of research costs for developing kind of autonomous driving kind of software or that kind of stuff. So we are also suffering this kind of problem. as I mentioned before, South Korea still relies on kind of manufacturers, and so that means we have to focus on kind of enterprise sales for survival or for making money. But however, due to kind of lockdown or kind of social distancing, and we have not enough chance to meet some enterprise officials or someone else in the large enterprises. So it will be a little bit hard for our sales activity, and maybe it affects us too. Yeah, but still, I agree with Mario's opinion about kind of cutting the cost for kind of operation, like cutting salary or kind of cutting extra budget for longer survivor after the pandemic. But I'm worrying that it will last for several years, not only this year. And so it will be a kind of a long winter for all of us, maybe. But I think there's still a kind of opportunity in some markets, like related with medical devices, or kind of something kind of related with quarantine. I mean, someone who are locked down want to do something kind of funny and interesting stuff in their home. Maybe we can find more opportunity in entertainment market and kind of a medical market from abroad and in Korea. That's my kind of opinion, and we are trying to cut down the costs, and we're trying hard to survive. Yeah, that's kind of our current situation. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, God, I mean, thank you for this very candid and open. I guess anyone who is not as candid and open is just putting his head in the sand. And I guess the rest of the world is kind of really awake. I just wanted to kind of we've done some small mini collaboration with Naver. Naver Labs is, as you know, is a Korean. And Naver Labs, they bought the Xerox, which was part of the Palo Alto Park, the original Xerox labs, which actually helped guys like Steve Jobs and all these guys come into their offices and steal the UI and all those ideas. And Bill Gates and Bill Joy from Bill Joy was the founder of Sun Microsystems. Mm-hmm. So we've had some interesting when they acquired the Xerox labs here in Paris, close to Paris. Mm-hmm. So there's some really wonderful technologies with Naver Labs. We tried to set up a collaboration. We're still in good contact with them. So yes, I totally agree. I think technology is the way to go, but currently our administration, infrastructure, physical costs, and if you have facilities, then you're even in deeper trouble because you're just paying money for something that you're not using at all. So when I moved to costs, what are your experiences? You're running a startup together with your co-founders. What are the pains that you're experiencing? The direct pain and the indirect pain that you experience when you look outside in the market. I'll have to unmute
so I think
you.
For us, it's a bit more sort of new. Am I audible now?
Yes.
Cool. It's a bit more of a sort of nuanced situation, I'd say. Of course, we focus on the agricultural domain, and one of the few things that people have not stopped doing since the crisis is eat, and specifically cook for themselves really well, because most restaurants were closed. So actually, there's been a slight uptake in production for most of our customers. So that might be a bit sort of counterintuitive. So that on its own has not really been a big issue for us. However, when we look at the sort of bigger picture, we do really see that the whole sort of economic outlook, of course, is becoming a bit more dark. So also our prospective customers, even though for them their business is doing fine, they're really worried that maybe in the future things are turning south. So when we try to set up calls with new prospective customers, they're much less sort of open for innovation. They stick a bit more to their old and known ways because they have enough sort of adventure coming, let's say. So that's, I think, for us the main challenge we see based on this sort of pandemic is that it's slightly more difficult to get in touch with people and convince them that innovation is the way to go, and they're more concerned with keeping alive and sticking to their known turf. So I think that for us is the main challenge.
Wonderful. I didn't hear sort of anyone of you talk about sort of this war or the battle of talent, because I just wanted to sort of give you a bit of some food for thought before, and probably help you trigger, and also maybe reflecting back to what Mario also mentioned in terms of post or during that bubble, in which companies like, there was I forgot the name of that van, the concept, which was a car van, something, the food delivery started back in 1999. I had just migrated to the Netherlands back then, so I was too busy setting up my life. I was I got married a year ago in '98, but there were a lot of startups that went bust, and Amazon was buying up. Amazon itself was a small company, so a lot of talented people that were part of these amazing startups, and that's why I kind of posted one of the comments of some person with great idea who may not launch his business because eventually he'll just take a job with one of these big firms. So I'm really concerned. I am really genuinely concerned that talent around us eventually will be absorbed, because when you say, well, hey, listen, I cannot pay your salary. I really like you. You've done some wonderful research. Your research has also found we've developed the prototype on our solution, and then we lose these people to our market. So essentially, I think money is definitely the most important thing to measure your success as to what you have in a bank balance versus what you are bringing in terms of revenue. But if you don't have people, you may have great tools and skills, great tools and technologies, then you will run into trouble. So I don't know, maybe so very quickly asking you guys, what do you think of talent? Just very quickly, maybe one sentence, Jonathan, Mario, Grihan, and Kas. Starting with Jonathan.
Yeah, I mean, we've built our team very organically, and we haven't got a budget to pay huge salaries to sort of rock star people. So it's really been a very kind of organic and kind of relationship based process, and I think it's resulted in a team that really gets on really well, and I feel pretty solid and confident about them. However, if you were rapidly trying to grow your team, having taken a big Series A or Series B or something, then I think actually this would be a great time to be doing it, because there's lots of there's going to be a lot of carcasses.
Yeah, lots of shining pearls in those carcasses.
Yeah.
Mario, very, very brief, 1 or 2 sentences.
I'd like to say about this is that don't forget to invest in yourself. When I was looking at this, I said, oh my God, we might not be able to afford to have someone help us with our website. So I went back and got certified in the tools that we were using to build a website, which is HubSpot. And right now I'm investing in getting, we're going to have to end up doing a lot more stuff on our own. We got to get used to it. So I'd say invest in yourself. That's what I would suggest.
Thank you. Grihan?
Okay, my opinion is that if it is necessary, we should invest in people or kind of engineers. But however, we should not over kind of putting our money for kind of our kind of engineers and team, because like in this situation, it will take a long time to recover from this pandemic. And also, for example, we only have 1 engineer per each part. Like for example, front end we only have 1 engineer, and back end also we have only 1 engineer. And for example, deep learning and machine learning engineer, we only have 1 engineer for now, and we're cutting down cost for this moment. If some enterprise with a lot of money or some have enough budget can afford to hire some talents, but however, in this situation, like a small startup like us, I think that is a little bit dangerous for now to hire or invest in talents. That's my kind of opinion.
Thank you. Gus, final thoughts?
Yeah, so we're really interested in hiring quite senior people to really get a good talent in our software development pool. And there you see it's, you have to pay them something, which is difficult, especially in these times. Although I do have the really nice and also quite surprising experience that when you offer people a really awesome position at the startup situation where they can really have input and shape your company, that I've had talks with people who are willing to shed 30,000 euros annually off their current salary to join us. So even though I do agree that it's challenging times, I also think that you definitely have really nice perks as a startup for people specifically in the AI and software domain.
Awesome. Nobody mentioned, I think I would just say is important, is you may be cash poor, but you're equity rich, typically as a startup, right? So
also,
you can give people an inducement that Microsoft just can't offer.
Yes, I think so for sure. And I think that actually adds to that, and when I say excitement, it is based on the fundamental research, which I'm sure in this group of 5 people, we understand pretty well. AI is nothing but a lot of underlying machine learning and deep learning research. The better you have optimized your algorithms and your models, the better and the faster you are than any of your competitors. So it is kind of, well, maybe you may not have huge compute capacity like Google or Facebook or Amazon have in their data centers with GPU capacity. But I do believe that intelligent models that look at data, sparse data, and maybe unique data like the Van Boven you have, or in neurophysiology data that you may have from EEG. It is your data, and you can apply models. Apply interesting models like Bayesian models. I don't want to go too technical into this. We're kind of really focusing on the entrepreneurial side of things. But so from me, my co-founder, I had this discussion in the morning, and we had kind of a very confrontational discussion in which we were like, how are we going to make it by the next year? And it doesn't seem right. I mean, what is this? I mean, and as Guihan quite rightly said, many companies, even in the Netherlands, and Kaz knows about it, I think yesterday or day before yesterday, our local Dutch railway, NS, they're already, including even our KLM, or Dutch airway system, so railway system, they're already looking at it 3 to 5 years of this depression in terms of revenues. In fact, our Dutch KLM CEO was saying that maybe 2025, 2026, and I'm thinking, all right, so we had this discussion in the morning, and the minute I come back into my room, and we're looking at some really awesome models in medical imaging, and then I'm looking at a new program, that new tool that we're developing, document sort of intelligence, which is a problem in every industry, and everybody wants to optimize. Or climate is a huge thing. We just pulled in an interesting project to do a research around using wind energy. It really excites me a lot. So I think there's so much of potential, and when I look at our ministers, and I'm in touch with our Dutch, the finance minister, and also the minister for I guess Landbouw. I don't know how do you say it in English, but well, anyways, her name is Mona Kaiser. Agriculture. Thank you, agriculture and climate. So they are all sending encouraging things. So I'm excited about this, and I think this, if I were an investor sitting with decent capital, I would say, well, these guys will be hyper automating and hyper accelerating this with artificial intelligence, creating fascinating models. We've invented models ourselves. It's out there in our research. So I really have to, and I cannot avoid being excited when I come to my office, which is where I'm sitting right now. So I think from terms of excitement and then deploying these things, I'm hopeful and I'm positive about this. It's really fascinating what we're doing. Investors, I can tell you, need to be educated, really. It almost feels like cloud computing days 12, 13 years ago, where investors didn't understand what cloud computing was. And Amazon was just renting a little bit of compute capacity to little startups. And today, AWS is a 30 billion euro dollar business. So I definitely see a huge potential if I figure out a way to survive the next 5 to 10 years, as Mario also mentioned. I think we have a huge payoff, including investors and the ones who are looking at us. And some may understand us. Others say, well, and all I'm saying to the investors is, you should have this philosophy that these guys are really smart, just give them the damn money. And we know that it's going to succeed. So I think, yes, but as Jonathan, and I'll want to point to you, I think there's fear, absolutely. But I think an educated investor who understands the technology would definitely should be looking at it. I mean, back then, just to give it sort of a sort of theme, Andreessen Horowitz Fund was not launched until the time when Facebook took a little bit of money. I think they took $25,000 from Mark Andreessen. That's all he invested in the beginning, because Mark Zuckerberg came with a laptop and just showed a laptop that says, "I have the Facebook platform." So it takes two to tango. So I'm hopeful that I meet the right people, and we have started roadshows. We are in the northern part of the Netherlands. The community, we are seen as an AI startup. We are kind of, as they say in Dutch, like a hidden, doesn't talk too much about it. So I'm doing my best and giving you guys the podium. So I would like to offer this opportunity, actually, because I want to help our co-entrepreneurs. It's not about me talking about, as we say, in my own bandwagon. Please, you can share the screen. I offer you the opportunity to please talk about your business, and please share with our community what is it that you are doing, and what is the excitement about it, and what is the future potential about it.
Yeah, well, if I could sort of stick my oar in there, Harry, and I wouldn't want to rain on your parade about sort of advanced models and that kind of stuff. I'm a big fan of them in the right sort of context and stuff. But I would say that one of the things that we've really learned over the last year or two is about solving simple problems first. We do, as I said, we at the moment our first product is a motor assessment platform, which allows clinicians to capture video and to score patients, give them clinical ratings on how well they perform motor actions. And we initially started off with a sort of battery of computer vision based tools that allowed a sort of much richer characterization of the motor assessment than could be done from a purely sort of subjective clinician assessment. And we still think there's great potential there, especially for quality control in certain contexts, but ultimately for creating sort of scalable closed loop clinical assessment. However, if I was to tell you what problems we're solving today, they're actually kind of mundane, the problems that we've found that we can provide real value to people for. So, for example, the assessments that we do, they used to take nurses about 50 minutes to do them. And thanks to just the data management capabilities of our platform, stuff that probably could have been built in 1998, 1999, might have run a bit slowly, but basically the technology was there. And because of data management, we've managed to cut that in half. And because we've cut the amount of time it takes them to do that job in half, we now get inbound requests from other clinicians at other hospitals, other nurses typically, who've been speaking to their friends and saying, "God, you've got to use it. It's a lifesaver. It's changed my life. I can see the patients in half the time." And that was just super mundane. Equally, in motor assessment, until we produced our platform, there hasn't been proper blinding in trials. So clinicians that are doing the clinical ratings in drug trials, phase 3 clinical trials, RCT trials that are going to the FDA and the EMA for regulatory approval of selling drugs, are being done in an unblinded fashion. So the clinician knows typically the diagnosis of the patient, whether or not they're on medication, how far through the trial they're going, and so proper blinding hasn't even been, and that's just about capturing video, shuffling it, doing simple things that that you would know from Statistics 101. So yeah, that's and then as I said, we are still keen on the sort of slightly fancier side of things and the more interesting sort of machine learning side of things, I would argue. But it's so crucial to solve those simple problems. And also, if you have an advocate, a clinician or something that comes to the investor and he tells or she tells the investor how great your product is, that's gonna gain more weight than the best PowerPoint with the fanciest slides and the best images and diagrams that you can come up with.
Yeah. Totally, I agree with you. I think simplicity beats any fancy, the most awesome models. In the more complex jargon, however fascinating for a research community, the further the client is from the truth. So I totally agree with you. I think simplifying your narrative is what actually makes an entrepreneur succeed. So I think it's a very, very good point. Definitely. No, you didn't rain on my parade. I think it's really the most important thing. We all have to continue to remind ourselves, no matter what you build. I mean, even if you're buying a toaster or an oven, You don't have to talk about how heat transfer, all those things. People just should be able to put in a pizza and heat up their food. Pretty simple. It should just be innovative. Mario, what do you think? So there's a lot of positiveness. There's a lot of and there's a lot of quantifiable sort of need towards moving and creating this AI economy. Google has said, Sundar Pichai, the CEO, lots of other people have been using that narrative about it's electricity, blah, blah, blah. And simplifying that is, in any case, we will be in a very different world, no matter what. It'll be digital. Facebook is creating their own in-house platform, which will allow people to continue to work remotely, potentially with VR. So you almost feel that you don't have to go back to work. So the world has changed. But how do we bring this out to the industry and sell?
Okay, I think that the key word here is sustainability, because there are a lot of things that we argue about and a lot of things that different people disagree about when it comes to consumers and entrepreneurs and investors and corporations. The one thing that is bringing everybody around the table, it might not be the top priority, but it's on everybody's priority list in some ranking, it's sustainability. So if you look at the Sustainable Development Goals that the United Nations has published, take that to any board meeting for a corporation, and at least half of the board is going to nod, yep, we should do some of those things, right? Take this to an entrepreneur, and half of the team will say, yep, those things are important to us. Take it to investors, on and on. And so there was a question here by somebody, by Anil S., and his question was, how are businesses reacting in terms of adopting the AI solutions from the startups? And the answer to that question is that the number one, this was just published by The Economist, their corporate network.
Here, this is the question, right?
Number one issue is don't see yourself as a startup. Be a technology provider, because they will purchase. They don't want to be your angel. They don't want to be your collaborator. They are like, we have these problems. These problems are quantifiable. Give us a solution. So now the next question, and Terry, I would really love to share my screen now. The next question is, so how, and Guijuan, you're going to have to forgive me that I'm going to reveal a little bit of our secret sauce to everybody live right now, because this is what's going to help you to target what are the real problems that you can offer as a solution with AI. Let's see, is my screen live there? Here we go. All right. There we go. That's my screen. So this is SASB, the Sustainability Accounting Standards Board. In brief, this is what a group of investors has come to put together to tell industry in general. And we're talking about retail investors like Goldman Sachs. We're talking about like the big ones, Eaton Vance, Goldman Sachs, Fidelity Investments, telling the corporations and the industry around the world, these are the indicators that we are going to judge you as investors for your performance towards sustainability. I've already preloaded the materiality map, materiality.sasb.org. And what you can do in here is go and look at a sector such as food and beverage, and then look at an industry such as agricultural products. And here you can see this gray one says, this is what investors are telling agricultural product companies they need to be doing today. Otherwise, they are going to start reconsidering whether, pulling the money from the company. And so you look at this and you see total water withdrawn, total water consumed, percentage of each region with high or extremely high baseline water stress. So if we look at what, for example, DeepBlock is doing, the question here is, how can we use satellite imagery to see which companies and to help companies audit through satellites their water resource management, both inflows of water and outflows of water. And so if we can focus on that and deliver a model around that, then you can take this to a whole bunch of companies and say, I think you'd better buy this solution. And so going to Jonathan's point about AI really has to be narrow problems, every single one of these squares in the map is a narrow problem that entrepreneurs or engineers could be looking at today, asking themselves, can I build an AI solution around this specific problem to give accurate measurements, accurate reporting to a company? And then I promise you that they'll sit down and they'll listen about whether or not to buy it. And I want to make one last comment, which was an earlier a comment that we had in the chat by Emanuela Goldini that she, rightfully pointed out. It's all guys on this call, and there's we don't see any women.
Yeah. Let me answer that later. Don't worry about it, Mario.
One quick issue that I want to point out about that is that that's also in here. You know what I mean? Employee engagement, diversity, and inclusion. Investors today are saying you've got to have gender diversity, and that's another startup idea. How can you, build a catalog using natural language processing of all of the board members and try to give us an understanding for who is going in the right direction?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the inclusivity is we spoke about it last time. I think it's very difficult to answer questions just from the talk perspective, and that's a great perspective to give, Mario. I think from ethics perspective, we need capable people to be able to run companies, and just as much as the wonderful sort of multitasking capability of women comes into play, their sense of judgment and ethics, and because they are the ones who raise children. And I've said that in many conferences outside as well, in my keynotes, that allowing women developers and algorithm developers to kind of look at these algorithms conscientiously is definitely going to help. So it's not a fancy, let's fill in the chair because there's this diversity riot today, and tomorrow there's a riot because I don't know. I want to be very respectful to every community member. I spent 4 years in Africa. I have seen I've seen the most wonderful people out there doing great stuff in Uganda. So I think, yes, the world is full of such amazing talent, and I think we should be open for that. It's a totally very, very important. I will highlight that because C definitely makes a lot of sense. We did reach out. We always reach out, and just to let you know, Emmanuel, if you're still on the call, in fact, our researchers, the female researchers outweigh. We don't have as many male researchers in our team. The ones who head of research or head of special projects, these are all wonderful women who've done neuroscience and geophysics. So it's a very important thing. I thank you for this wonderful. I will look into that document. Thank you once again. Guihan, quickly to you, what are those awesome stuff that we should be doing, and how to progress this, bringing simplicity, as Jonathan mentioned, and looking at problems that need solving if you're kind of lost, as Mario pointed to that wonderful dashboard. What are your thoughts?
You mean I want? Okay.
I can rephrase the question. The question is, we have challenges, but there are opportunities. So let's talk about opportunities.
Opportunities in our business market, or
of course, yes, from your perspective, obviously. And feel free to share your company page or whatever, because I want to help you let the people know about you, just like Van Boven will do that in a few minutes.
Okay, let me share our homepage screen. For example, let's start with this Chrome tab. Wait for a moment, please. Yes, as Mario mentioned, we got a kind of aspiration for our kind of homepage. Yeah, like this way. We divided our kind of a business model into two sectors. Like I mentioned, we built a kind of a user-friendly, human-friendly interface for drag and drop platform. And also, currently, we are making money through kind of a custom solution development. Specifically, we are developing a kind of a computer vision solutions for enterprises and governments, like city governments, who want to detect kind of a change by time from aerial imagery. And this is our kind of a contact page for enterprise customers. And
1 second, let me just share this as well. It's kind of hidden in my screen, and I'm trying to make sure that I can share it. Let me. Yeah, I can do that now. Hang on. Yeah. So, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So this is a kind of a current money source, but however, we are currently improving our drag and drop platform for public. I mean, kind of a way to democratize AI, so that I can share a different screen for you. Is that one? Am I trying? Okay, yeah. This is our platform. Yeah. So let me show you. This is kind of you can imagine kind of an AI version of Scratch. Do you know Scratch from MIT Media Lab? maybe it will be a simple tool for creating a space. But however, Scratch is not that practical in terms of kind of analytic. But however, we changed our kind of tool for kind of a practical use, especially for satellite imagery. For example, many researchers in South Korea use AWS SageMaker, which does not work for high-resolution imagery. But however, we are trying to use our technology for processing high-resolution imagery with our drag-and-drop platform, so that users can annotate their for example, object from satellite imagery or aerial imagery.
Cool.
Yeah, this is very large, and it cannot be processed by conventional method. For example, from modeling to pre-processing and kind of a data preparation process. Everything is quite different from conventional approach for kind of small resolution, typical imagery. We are by camera or something like that one. So we want to create a kind of, I stopped sharing our platform anyway. We want to create a kind of difference between our competitors by offering a kind of specialized platform for high-resolution imagery, which is quite meaningful for scientists or kind of researchers, so that they can use AI with less background knowledge about AI, so that we can help them to improve kind of their research model according to analyzing their research data, especially related with imagery. So I think it's still meaningful for public, for general images. So, but anyway, we are making difference by implementing or kind of improving our technologies to processing high resolution imagery, so that we can make money from public sector, and while gathering more attention from public, from online channel, like advertising through Google keyword marketing, like someone who want to build their kind of own AI assistant, especially related with computer vision. Yeah.
Awesome. I think there's so many applications, and I will not spend too much time, because otherwise I'll eat into the time of this talk. Cause let's change the question into, let's not go too generic. Let's narrow down, because we are excited about narrowing down. So Van Boven. And I'm super excited about this technology. I remember Hussein was very excited when he was joining your company. So tell us about it. Please go ahead, share a screen, and
Thanks. Great to hear. I'll stick with the story. I think that translates maybe better what we're doing than sharing my showing the website. So everybody can go to vanboven-drones.nl if they want to see the website. What I think is really most exciting is the fact that we're able to really make the combination of this high-tech machine learning environment with this really sort of fundamental industry that's really at the base of humanity almost. Like food is really a central thing, and also a business that's usually very conservative. And the way we have grown our food has not really changed dramatically over the last, 50 years. At some point you have the big mechanization wave, but that's already very long ago. And here in our country, the Netherlands, we're quite innovative in agriculture. And I think that for us is a great opportunity to use this innovative mindset that our growers have, to work together with them and to really take the practice and the day-to-day activities of the grower and combine it with our sort of AI expertise from our machine learning engineers, like for instance Hussein, to be able to provide a really useful solution. I think that's what's a challenge for most AI companies, especially also in this agricultural domain, to make a solution that really is useful for someone, which is I think Jonathan made a really good remark, that sometimes the mundane problem is really the one that actually matters. And for us, it has been quite a journey, and we learn every day by talking to lots of growers to really understand like what bothers you or what's going on in this business day by day. And right now we can finally be able to really provide them with data that they can actually use. And I can only say that it's very satisfying to work on a product and to develop a product and to use your technical brain to make something awesome. But then in the end, also see the result that the grower actually changes his practice and changes the way he works to adopt this technology, and find out that actually it's for the greater good. So that in the end, he's more sustainable, he has less waste, and in the end, there's more money sticking with the grower, which is something that I think we should all want, to give them a better economical position. And I think that's a very inspiring element in this world to work on. And we're still very much looking for talent and financing. So I would definitely invite people who are interested to work into this domain to get in touch with us, so we can continue talks even after this session.
Great. I mean, that should be definitely the goal as well, and that is the goal, to bring more our community in your direction as well. I believe you don't have to show anything on your. You don't feel the need of sharing anything. If you do, you can always talk about Van Boven. Is there some tool or technique you've built which will help the agricultural industry? Is there something you want to show, or you're good for now?
I can show a really quick example, it's always exciting because it's live for the last 5 minutes, or it came live sort of.
Oh, really?
Today.
Oh,
So
then we'd want to see, man. Come on, let's take a look at it.
Things that usually break. Hold on, I prepared so it's in the sort of base screen at first. So I'm sharing it right now. See if this works.
Okay.
Yeah, there we go. So this is our platform that growers can see. So, and it's they see different fields they can work on and different numbers of plants that they planted. And what we do is provide them with the actual number of plants that are still alive. So this is sort of a demo field we're working on. So here we see that this grower planted 112,000 plants. Right now there's 105,000 still alive. And this is information that before now they just didn't have. So they just say, well, probably I'm going to lose, I don't know, 10% over the season. So this is already quite a big improvement that we can show them exactly like, well, you're losing 5.4% right now. And then finally, we also show them a size distribution, because they have different, of course, these products grow, so they grow in size. So we can show them the distribution in percentages of how many of their crops fall within a specific size element. And of course, what's I think also really interesting is the spatial element. So if you open the map here, my computer is slightly slow because of the streaming. They can also check out this data in a spatial way. So for instance, I just mentioned that they are losing plants over time. So we know this because we check out every single plant in the imagery, and then we can provide them with this sort of information, so they can inspect and know also not only the numbers but also where it happens. And so it's clearly the edge cases, which makes sense, but there's also a spotter in the middle, and then they can zoom in further, watch the original drone imagery if you want to get a quick look. So that's what we're working on. Yeah, and I think this is a cool basic demo.
Very nice.
Sharing it for now. But I think what's interesting for us also is we're not really showing the machine learning or showing, and that's, as a technologist, you want to show what's really cool for you. But here again, the mundane question is what the grower wants to know, which is simply, look, where's my product, or how big is my product? So in the end, we just show very simple results. But I think that's a very important mindset to follow in order to really add value and not only provide a cool technology.
Yeah. I think this is probably said in the very Dutch way. In Dutch, we have this expression of the Dutch nuchterheid, or kind of keep it very down to earth. It's also a very English thing, by the way, is to don't overplay your hand. And if you talk 50, if you have AI, 50% of the time in your talk, then probably you're doing a lot less about AI and talking more about it. So I think that is where a company shines and differentiates from itself. I think it's fascinating. So I learned a lot today already with what you guys do. There's so much to talk. I mean, I'm sure we will have conversations with each other going forward. What I want to do is kind of try to give individual of you sort of gentlemen, I think Mario already answered a few questions. So let's try to answer the questions. I believe people had some questions. I will kind of just scroll down and try to see if there are questions, and I will just individually ask you if one of you feels comfortable in answering these. Some are directed to you, so then we can start with Jonathan, for instance. This is a question for you. Try to be brief. I know it's getting late for others as well, so.
Yeah, I mean, this is more a sort of question for a neurosurgeon, which even when I was clinical, I was a neurologist, which is a medical sort of side of brain science. But the basic answer is, I think you're talking about sort of keyhole surgery, as it's conventionally called, and making a very small hole in the cranium. Craniotomy is typically what a neurosurgeon will do if he must make a hole at all. So yeah, it's a principle of medicine, to minimize your sort of trauma and stuff. So much as they may seem gung ho, they don't do a sort of full removal of the cranial vault at every opportunity.
Yeah, awesome. And another one for you, Jonathan.
Well, this is it possible to replace EEG with a better technology? So again, there's a lot to unpack here. So there's other forms of sort of EEG which are kind of directly on the neural tissue, which give you a better signal. Because typically, EEG is filtered by the skin and the bone of the cranium, so you can just get your electrodes a lot closer. But actually, one of the really interesting sort of developments where we work in deep brain stimulation and Parkinson's disease is, whereas previously these devices were essentially ballistic, so they were just stimulating without using any feedback. Now there is feedback that's sort of constantly measured while the device is in situ, and that's now being used to, actually, one of the labs that uses our system is about to publish a very interesting paper about recording from the motor cortex at the same time as stimulating in the deep nuclei, and using that in order to do what's called closed loop adaptive DBS, so with no human in it. Very, very exciting area of development.
Awesome. Thank you, Jonathan, for answering this question. And perhaps, Mario, if you're comfortable, did you answer this question already? If not, could you please throw some light in it? Basically, businesses, there's a lot of interesting AI solutions. Some of us want to downplay AI and show simplicity. Others are excited, so we just talk about AI. So we hope that, just because the customers heard about AI, you just hope that he is going to buy, no matter what. The intention is very honest. Everybody wants to bring technology. But how are they reacting to this?
So I had briefly addressed this one, and what I had mentioned about that was that you've got to stop seeing yourself as a startup and see yourself as a solution provider. So corporations don't want an idea or a collaboration with a startup. They want a solution provider that has something, it's ready to go. They pay and they get the result. So you've got to very, very quickly, it's like, to be a good startup, you got to stop being a startup as quickly as you can. And so I think I can expand just a little bit more on that, where I would say, for you to be able to get there, don't underestimate the necessity to invest in marketing. And literally put on webinars like this one, where you invite people and you talk about how and why your solution is relevant. I had mentioned that, The Economist says that for corporations, they want solution providers. And I think what I can further discuss is that the second thing is that, as solution providers, they don't want technology. They don't want computer science. They don't want cloud computing. Part of that same survey revealed, what do they want? They want analytical reasoning. So they don't want someone that comes in and says, you can outsource your engineering to me, I'm really good. What they want is someone that comes and says, for your business intelligence, I will give you these results that actually matter. And if you do that, then right now, I think you're going to find a very captive market. And just to emphasize and repeat myself, if you want great ideas for things you can develop and take to corporations and get them to buy, go to that SASB materiality map and look through all the squares and look through them, download the PDFs and read, because they have them down to like the measurement unit.
Very good.
Use this measurement unit, develop an AI solution around that, go and sell it into that industry.
Basically, no steroids, but painkillers. That's what people need.
Yep.
Thank you.
Killers. They'll pay for, right now, literally, it's a little bit morbid, right? But drugs, painkillers, that's what we need right now.
Awesome. If I, let me just see, maybe, I don't know, Gus, you would like to answer a question, maybe, although they're asking me, but I will let you answer it because people have heard too much from me.
I would like to understand how any product or service organization can be converted into the next 2 or 3 years in an AI-powered organization. Interesting question. Well, I think there's the question behind the question should maybe be whether that's a goal on its own, whether every organization should be converted into an AI-powered organization, because that might not be always the best solution. But taking the standpoint from the question asker,
let's say you're just to simplify it, maybe your KLM, ING, all these banks, and I'm sure you read all these financial dagblad, and you see these companies started off 7 years ago, 4 years ago with large digital transformation projects. And today, all those, when we are reading those Financial Times, the Dutch Financial Times, that all failed. So I think the whole idea is, how do we make it possible inside these organizations, because they are desperate to transform their organization, right?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and also a question that they're probably asking themselves for about 1,000 times. And I think it probably starts with a sort of mentality change, because it requires a certain faith in the technology, and faith to let people who are good in this job have the freedom to operate and to use their expertise to actually transform those businesses. And we will stay there, but I'll continue. And I think that's very challenging, especially in the banking world, where there's lots of regulation. So they're very cautious about doing this, about giving the freedom to the experts on this topic. So I think that's a big change that should be made.
Looks like.
And I think we lost our host, right?
Hey, Kaz, I got a quick question I was trying to ask you.
I'm here. Sorry, I'm back here.
There he is.
No worries, Terry.
I was kicked out.
We were just taking over the show. Mario, you were asking a question.
Yes, Mario, you had a question for Kaz?
Oh, okay. Yeah, Kaz, I picked out that example from agriculture, and then it dawned on me when you were talking that you're actually doing something in agriculture. So with the product that you're seeing, do you see some complementary service or analysis where satellite imagery could, either embedded into your product or as a product that you think growers also need? We'd love to hear about that from you.
Yes, definitely. I think what's really the most exciting is if you can use, because we're mostly using drones, and that has it's a high quality image data, which is nice, but on the other hand, it's operationally very difficult. On the other hand, if you use satellite imagery, it's operationally wonderful, but there are some downsides or limitations to the image quality, right? So I think combining these elements and using the right technology for the right question is ultimately the best solution always. So there's definitely possibilities of merging these technologies, and especially if you can combine it in one platform, so the grower doesn't really, it's not really concerned with this merger of technology. I think that's really interesting.
Cool. I think it's definitely, do please reach out to each other as well. It could be possible that, Kaz's company is definitely wanting to kind of expand as well. These days with software technologies, we all want to look beyond borders. We know that, Dutch market is also for us small, because we need to find the right buyer as well. And we do the same as well. I would want, if for Guiwan, would you be comfortable answering this question, Guiwan?
Yeah, of course. I have an idea about explaining this one. Yeah.
Great, please. Wonderful.
I think this is a kind of also a challenging problem for us. For example, in South Korea, aerial imagery and satellite imagery is kind of monopolized by one enterprise, which means it's very hard to access because government is allowing or kind of giving a permission some enterprise or someone who to access this kind of data, because it is quite related with kind of national security and defense. So that will be a little bit hard for us to reach this data, and we also suffer this kind of problem. But we can find some source of kind of data for our model training, or kind of because some of our customer already has this kind of data, and they want to analyze because they have knowledge about GIS, but have even less knowledge about computer vision. So they reached us for kind of conducting a project, and we are discussing now. And so this is also our problem, and there's a lot of limitation for data accessing in South Korea too, and maybe other countries who were also having this kind of problem. And so what I am thinking is that maybe our platform can be a nice way to break this problem. I mean, for example, as I showed before, wait for a moment, please. I'm accessing to my website, and I can share a platform for more information. Like, I want to build a kind of creative space, which means I want to share AI with other persons. For example, if we don't have enough data, we can kind of share our data with others. With maybe with annotative data will be a nice way. So that it is already done in Kaggle, though. But if we can upload this kind of, for example, white blood cell detection, or kind of an example of a kind of star transfer example, and way we can upload our data and we can share with others. Maybe we can gather more data, and we can get a privilege to access it to others' data, so that we can collect more to maybe compete with Google's to have enough data for further research or further modeling or further data for our model. In that way, I think it is possible. But whether it will be successful or not, I think it is still worth trying to create a kind of a space or community to share kind of data or kind of model or other ideas for AI and the research.
So there is, just to summarize, there is a path to independence and towards building your own data sets, allowing communities to contribute to your specific problems. So if, for instance, if it's Kaz or if it's Jonathan, I guess in Jonathan's case, it's probably more difficult because you need to work in clinical trials. It's a huge regulatory process. But in Kaz's level, I guess if there are some drone imagery in other areas in Africa, in South America, in other arable lands, it's possible to gain a lot of intelligence, provide your services already as a free service to do, we scan and we give you like 5% of your crop is potentially, might lose, and that is a revenue loss for you, and then eventually build on premium services. That is wonderful. So yes, I've been advocating also when I talk to sort of CEOs and I work with enterprises, and they keep asking the same questions as well in Europe, as you can imagine, that there is a lot of discussion around, the East and the West challenge. On West, we have US, and then we have China, also working really hard to penetrate into the Dutch ecosystem, the European ecosystem, with their telecom services, etc. I don't want to mention names because it's very heavily politicized sort of discussion. But nevertheless, I think each company, each business need to sort of build their models based on their data. And yes, there are interesting models to work with sparse or limited data. And please use this opportunity to sort of also mention things that you may have forgotten or want to use. I just want to sort of, for me, I guess just final thoughts. For me, the final thoughts are there are a lot of challenges, and I'm really hoping that our businesses will also survive because we have some really solid business case. We've raised capital. We're cash free. We have no debt, and so I'm positive about that. So for me, the biggest takeaway is to be able to continue to simplify my model. That's what I've learned from this discussion, which is great. Finding new avenues of sales to be able to kind of help our customers is great. So those are the couple of things that I'm taking off, and obviously, in how far I can prevent myself, as Mario quite rightly said. If it comes down to, well, I need to buy food for myself, and then, I hope it doesn't come to that for all businesses. We are living in reasonably sort of, economies where we can sustain ourselves, our ecosystem, family, etc. is great. I just hope that, we are able to also sell our services. So there is an optimist in me that says there's too much potential and value. And let's say there's a pragmatist in me who's kind of cautious. So I still want to be optimistic. Jonathan, what are your takeaways? What do you want to tell our audience?
Sorry, Terry, if I can bump in.
Go ahead.
You have to run in.
So why don't we let you sort of give your final thoughts before you have to go. Thank you once again for staying this long.
Yeah, thanks very much. I'll recap really quickly. So I was really a great talk. Thanks for the invitation. I think Mario made a few good points about what I really learned from it is don't sell yourself as a startup, sell yourself as a technology provider. I think that's a really good takeaway and something that we can definitely improve on. And also that there's definitely also opportunities in the whole pandemic, especially in the hiring segment. People are really moving right now, so we can, I think, make good use of that. So these are for me 2 big takeaways. So really thank you for the information, and we're going to make sure to use that.
Wonderful, Kaz. Thank you very much. Thanks for staying, and please, get in touch with Kaz with his company, and or please, gentlemen, connect with each other. Thanks once again, Kaz.
Yes, thank you very much. Have a nice evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye. Ciao. Jonathan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, really interesting. Always a pleasure to see what other people are doing, especially in other sectors, because I think there's often a lot you can learn. Even just seeing Kaz's visualization, how you translate the sort of the output of your machine learning pipeline, for example, into a intuitive user interface. That's always great. Only thing I would add, I think that I didn't get a chance to add, would be on the data. You said it must be hard for us in medicine, and I think it can be. It's just, I would encourage, we do actually get a lot of data, and it's PHI, so it comes under HIPAA and GDPR in the EU, obviously. But I would say, give people a reason to give you their data. Don't just ask, because it'll always be safer for them to say no. If they've got a choice between yes or no, share the data, then they'll just say no. It's just safer. Give them a reason. If they can save money by sharing your data, or you're giving them something more valuable by sharing, people will share their data. I mean, we see this in this recent research done on how much do members of the public actually care about Facebook and Google and stuff helping themselves to their data. And they say they care a lot about it, but they don't behave like they care about it at all. So if you create value for people, you can get that data.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks.
Mario. Yes, go ahead. You wanted to add something else, Jonathan?
No, I was just saying thanks.
Thank you very much. Mario? I need to unmute you. Hang on.
Sorry.
I unmuted you.
Okay. So I think one really important takeaway that I'm going away with this, which actually impressed me quite a bit, was, Terry, by knowing you and seeing your activity online, I was thinking, hey man, this guy's gonna come in and he's gonna have everything figured out, right? And for you to share with us the fact that this has also affected you, and for you to be so frank about it, I'm not going to say that I'm happy to know that you're suffering or that you suffered through it, but there is a certain sense of comfort, an uneasy comfort, that we really are in all of this together.
Yeah.
I really like your approach to be quite frank with the people on this call, to be like, hey, if we could do something together, let's do something together. People in the audience, if they want to work with us, to please reach out. And one kind of like parting piece of advice that I would leave to our audience is that, and one of the reasons I was smiling during Kaz's answer to my question about satellites is that I really like the frankness and the honesty that we're taking in this, because the way that we're talking right now is how business really gets done. There's a big misconception by the media and by a lot of the public events where the pitch is this grandiose thing in front of a stage. Yeah. And you have to use passion and confidence and visuals and everything. And that's not the way it works. I think that the way, when the light bulb just went off in my head, hey, Kaz, do you guys need satellite image? And then he says, yeah, I think so. And then you follow up on that, not with impressive things in a ceremony, but like literally a demo. Yeah. Hey, here it is. And does it work? And if it doesn't work, then get back to him when you can get it to work. And then at that point, you're on your step to actually doing real things, which to me is the answer to that last question that we have. How can a non-angel invest in this amazing and intelligent business? Well, invest your time and join us in this effort, saying, I have a valuable thing I can offer to you guys, whether it's, money, if you really are thinking about an investment, or whether it's time or talent. Be clear about that, pitch that, and then follow up on it.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think let me add my points a little bit with Deep Kapha and how we kind of also look at the hygiene factors. in when a business actually is ready to float. But so Guihan, what are your final kind of thoughts you took away from this, and what do you have to share with the others who are probably trying to set up something?
As a kind of a representative of South Korea, I think I should share some kind of information of a South Korea startup ecosystem and
Please do that. Yeah.
economy. So it will be helpful for you who are interested in Korean market. Honestly, the typical way of becoming a unicorn in South Korea is to focus on retail or entertainment or other B2C related markets, like a delivery service or something else. Like most of the large startups and enterprises in South Korea is currently conducting a research on AI technology. But however, they did not start their business with AI. I mean, they did not start their business as an AI startup, but rather they started their kind of a business from other industries, like I mentioned right before. I mean, retail, entertainment, and then afterward, they started researching AI for their tech advertising. So they actually does not use AI much for their business, but however, they want to just advertise or show off their tech, or they just want you to analyze their market data collected as they grow. So that's why they are kind of starting to conducting a research on AI. So if AI startups who want to enter AI market, who want to enter markets of South Korean market, I would like to advise that enterprise AI startups with kind of a specific AI technology, honestly, is not that recommended. Yeah, it would be a little bit hard for you to find nice enterprise customers in South Korea. And so, however, if you are not that AI-oriented startup, rather you have your own service related with entertainment or other B2C related service, then it is very worthwhile to try to enter Korean market. The population is quite large, and also the economy is well developed. So I think you can find a lot of customers through Google advertisement, or you can find partners like Mario or someone else. And people are interested in entertainment or service related with daily life. And so you can find a lot of opportunity if you have an amazing idea and if you have an interest in South Korea, because the government also support foreign founders to enter Korean market too. They're massively putting a lot of money for startups in South Korea. Yeah. It's kind
Wonderful.
of for entering.
Thank you.
Considering entering South Korean market.
I remember this was almost a year and a half ago. We have a sort of a sales director or country director who is sitting in Japan. And the first thing when we sort of onboarded him, he said, there has to be a Japanization of our content and how we tell our services. And I was confused. I've worked in Japan in the mid-90s. I used to work for a Japanese company called Nippon Yusen Kaisha. But the Japanization, what he meant was you have to tell the service in a very different way. You have to work very differently. So that's definitely, I think it's great insights. Thank you very much. There's a lot of learning for all of us. I thank you, gentlemen. It's an hour and a half, but I think there is so much depth in the experiences that you have, your life experiences as an entrepreneur. I think vulnerability is one which I have learned. I've also been a fool, I guess, 12 years ago when we were, we had our own line of credit. We were very arrogant, and rightly so. We had a consulting business, strategy consulting business. So we knew that even if we went to investors, no one will invest because, investors are looking at exponential growth. They don't care about, consulting services. But in those years also, I got punched in my face as we start, I guess this is how we started our conversation. And I think the humility is where today, unfortunately, for all of us, we need to shake it up a little bit. We have to definitely also be confident when we're talking to other clinical services. We're also working with the Dutch clinical authority here. So, Jonathan, if you want to expand it, I can connect you to the chief Dutch clinical authority board member, who's a good contact of mine. We're trying to set some things up with NVIDIA. But I think, so I would just want to offer that I want to collaborate. And obviously in this process of collaboration, if we can sort of monetize and create optimization for customer, which helps them save money and helps us take care of our businesses and feed our sort of employees, as I say it in a very humble way. would be the best way to get past this crisis. I guess there's the last question. I will leave this question. Pravine, please, the way when I reach out on LinkedIn, I really would love to have all kinds of people. When Jonathan reached out and Pivan and Mario, it was effort. So I do expect that you take the first step. So this is almost like a VC talk. I'm not a VC, but I've kind of sort of, it's lived my life that way. Stand up. Anyone from any demography, please come up. So if you want to be part of the panel, Pravine, you should. We will definitely set something up here. This is for all entrepreneurs.
Did you get any female founders or other peoples in this sort of space asking to join you?
Yeah, we had all the time, and when I reached out last time, there were some women in ethics. So there was a wonderful lady in US. She joined the ethics. So do join. We want them to be in our panel. This is totally, people reach out to us, and we have this 5 people, because as you can see, in 5 people already, we didn't get enough time to talk about our business. So we don't want to make sure we want to make sure that it's qualitatively great. So come over and join. We'd love to have you, or some entrepreneur you want to recommend. You could be an entrepreneur in South America, Africa, any region in the world. If you have something wonderful to say, we are happy to hear from you. So gentlemen, thank you once again. It was great, insightful. I think it was not for me to talk about my services, because then it would be a host kind of eating the whole talk time. Right. I learned a lot. That is for me the most important thing. I think I will reach out to you, Jonathan, because our startup that is in the freezer, it had some hygiene factor issues. So that's why we put it in the freezer, but the idea is awesome. I will share a link with you, which is hidden. It's not, we are saving it for the investors, but I guess it'll be next year, because we just sort of figured out that I can't do more things than what I'm doing. Mario, Vivan, I think we have to talk as well. So I already see some business opportunities that'll help me in my business. Thank you once again.
Thanks a lot. Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. And this will, for all the audience, this will be recorded. It is recorded, and we'll share it with you guys, so you can get and reach out to these wonderful entrepreneurs, and please make connections, and hopefully it helps you in your business. And see you guys. Take care. Godspeed. Stay safe. And stay alive. All right. Bye-bye, guys. Bye-bye. See you.
Okay.